Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. So today we have a very special person with us, Miss Karina Tan, right? So when I talk about her credibility, so currently she is working as a product design consultant at a very reputed company. I won't mention the name. You can just check out on her LinkedIn profile, right? Other than that, she has a lot of experience when we talk about the UX industry, UX designing industry specifically, right? She has transitioned from architecture to UX, right? So this will be interesting journey to talk about and to learn from. Definitely, if you are actually looking for something that is similar, if you are planning to have a career in UX designing, then this podcast is something that you should definitely watch, right? So we won't waste much of the time now. We'll just begin with the podcast. Ma'am, anything that you would like to say in your introduction, then you can just begin with the questions.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I am most willing to contribute to your platform's vision, and yeah, looking forward to having an insightful conversation.
Definitely. And that will be a lovely conversation. I definitely, know that before starting the podcast because, whatever I have learned about your experience, while pitching you the whole thing. So, it actually gave me an overview that, okay, you have learned through the hard experience, right?
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks.
So, all right. So to begin with the podcast, I would just like to, we all would just like to, understand your story. How has it actually been?
Growth, consistency, idea, reality. It all begins at one point. Here. Want to know how the industry works or how to build yourself? Learn from experienced people from the industry. Subscribe to know more.
Yeah, okay. So I was always a creative person growing up, and in the school I used to always like art and craft, and we used to have this hobby periods. I was also academically good, and my maths and science teacher used to always be like, you should be in art club, and I was like, no, I like this more. So it was sorted that I want to pursue creative stream. So when it came to finally choose what stream I want to go in, I was researching, and then I was like, okay, I don't think I want to pursue medical or engineering. Let's go with architecture, because that's what I felt would give me that creative push I was always looking for. So yeah, architecture schooling was good. So it was about 5 years. So bachelor's of architecture is for 5 years.
Right.
I graduated in 2019. And also worked as an architect for about 3 years. But a little later, I started feeling like a designer in a box. And to expand myself as a designer, I was again looking for more creative ways to be in, roles to play. And that's when luckily I came across UX designing. I researched about it before finally transitioning into it. And I felt like this is the right way to go ahead for the future. And yeah, here I am now.
Understood. Like that's a great journey to hear about, right? And definitely we learn a lot more when we start hearing the exact, when we start targeting the exact topics, right? So the journey, you have transitioned from architecture to UX design, right? And that is quite fascinating, right? So what motivated you to make the significant career switch specifically? And how did your background in architecture, influence the whole approach of UX design?
Correct. Okay. So as I said that I felt like a designer in a box. I felt limited, and I knew that I don't want to transition into something that doesn't give me or that doesn't allow my skills from architecture to transfer to the other industry that I'm in. And so I was looking something around that only. That all the skills that I've learned, that I don't want it to go waste. So when I came across UX designing, I understood that it's quite the roles that we play as a designer over here are quite similar to what I was doing as an architect. And that motivated me more.
Yeah.
Also there are other factors, like I feel like architecture industry in itself is a slow industry. Right? As UX industry is part of tech, IT, it's a fast-paced industry, and I quite liked that factor about it. It's very adaptable. It was fascinating in that way as well. So these were two factors that were quite fascinating to me. And yeah, is there anything else that you asked me?
I just wanted to, know more about your background, that how did actually architecture influence that whole thing, right?
Correct. So yeah, to answer that, the design part itself actually was the starting point, that Yeah, this is quite similar. This is quite similar. This is as an architect, I was designing for say like a physical realm.
Right.
Now I'm designing for digital realm.
Understood. Right. So, what aspect of architecture was surprisingly, translated well into UX design? Specifically, you mentioned that design sense, right? Design sense was the factor which actually helped you to, actually transition smoothly into UX design, right? Because I believe design sense is the most integral component of any kind of designing that you do, right? Other than that, any specific pointer that you would like to mention about it?
Sure, sure. There are actually a few more. For example, even in architecture, we were supposed to do our initial research. So we used to have this. So we are given this challenge of designing a project. A project. And before that, we used to do the initial research, like visit to the sites, similar sites. For example, if we are supposed to design a hospital, so we would do the research the hospitals to understand the design well, to understand the accessibility well, etc. etc. The same thing is required in UX design as well. If you are supposed to design a mobile application, you do the competitive analysis, you see the market,
Right.
similar products out there, and you gather information how you can work on your product that will help your product stand out from other products in market.
Right.
So for that purpose, you have to do the competitive analysis. Again, other things, for example, you have to study your users. So there are multiple things. The research part is similar. Another part that is similar is collaboration, of course. Architects work in collaboration with clients, of course, but other than that, vendors, their own team members. So the collaboration is similar in UX designing as well. UX designer has to collaborate with stakeholders, project managers, and their other teammates.
Understood. Right. That's a fair enough overview about the industry as a whole, right? So, for those who are not familiar about the field specifically, so how do you actually define UX?
Okay. So UX design, or we say user experience design, many of us actually have this notion that user experience design is only for digital products. But it's not that case. Even an event manager can be a user experience designer. You know how? Because at the end, he's designing for the users attending the event. He has to curate everything from start to end to make an event successful in a way that it satisfies users' needs and makes it enjoyable, right? So any physical product is also has user experience design. But because the IT industry has widely used this term as UX design, we will talk in terms of that. The user experience design is one aspect. There is another aspect called UI design. Let me first talk about UX design. So UX design are designers who design a product. So there was a gap in the market which was discovered by someone. For example, food delivery app. Okay, so we have Zomato, Swiggy. Now the gap was noticed by the founders. We have that product now. What designers do is, from the moment user creates their account on the application, that is onboarding process. The onboarding process to the time they are in the app, ordering the food, checking out. Even if somebody decides to discontinue their association with the app, is called offboarding experience. Okay, so everything that is associated for users with the application and the experience with the application, how smooth it is, how well organized it is, or am I getting confused? Am I getting frustrated while I'm using the app? Depends on how well user experience is designed. So this is what user experience is. So you design products that are useful, are valuable, are easy to use, are fun to use, and are the inclusive aspect. So you have also consider their accessibility laws that are also studied by UX designers.
Right.
So that we can make it inclusive for all human beings.
Understood, right. So, could you walk us through the core roles and responsibilities? You gave us an overview, right, about the responsibilities that a designer has also in the previous answer itself. So, what are the core roles and responsibilities that a designer handles, right, on day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sure. So on day-to-day basis, it differs. It differs in phases actually. So designer first begins with the initial research, as I mentioned. But then what happens after research? There are multiple things they go through in the research itself. After they have done the research, they define the problem through the research. After defining the problem, they ideated like the problem was noted. Now there's time to think about the solution. So in solution also, it's designers approach towards it, how they approach it, whether they want to do it alone, but it's always recommended to ideate in team. We have workshops as well within team members to come up with good solutions. So someday user experience designer is researching, but someday they are talking to the users, taking interviews. Someday they are conducting surveys.
Always right.
Then they are ideating, they are wireframing, sketching it out. They are collaborating within the team members to come up with good solutions. And when there is some sort of feedback collected from within the team with the help of users, their design screens, like initial wireframes. And yeah, we did not talk about UI designers. So UI designers are responsible for how, UI designers are user interface designers. They are responsible for how the application will look visually, the typography, the colors that will be used, the graphics that will be used. So UX designers collaborate with UI designers, explain how the design will be, and the final UI screens are made by the UI designers. So someday they'll be collaborating with them as well.
All right. Okay, so do these rules also differ on the basis of the scale or the project or a company, right?
Correct. Absolutely. So it does. Sometimes the projects are too fast paced that the process that I actually talked about is called design thinking process.
Right.
So sometimes when you have a good bandwidth of the time and resources, you take your time to complete, like go through each design thinking process.
Right.
But sometimes the projects can be very fast. So you have to quickly come up with the solutions in that case.
Right.
You have to quickly complete your research within a given period of time. And that is absolutely subjective to each and every designer.
Right.
They have to make a decision at that point. How much time they can give to research, how much they want to give the time to ideate. Sometimes it's so fast that they quickly come on to ideation. It's actually not a very ideal approach, but it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
I've also heard the same statement from someone else as well. I'm just not remembering the name, but this is quite like a well-known statement that this happens a lot in the industry, right? Like the teams, based on the timeline or the deadline, right? They just switch directly to the ideation while about to they just start designing, right? And it is quite problematic as well. And that's
It is.
not the approach.
It is because the more time you give to the research, the clarity gained in that phase itself will reduce the number of iteration you will be doing next
Later on, right?
So it's very important to give some time over there.
Right. So actually, UX designing overall is quite overwhelming to hear about because it involves a lot of things that actually, like inspire the designers specifically, the people with creative minds, right?
Yeah.
So how to actually begin with it? How to actually begin learning it, right? You must have also started at some point, right? And have been through the whole process now. So just give us a brief overview about it, and we can have a discussion about the roadmaps that the students can also follow to learn the specific things about UX designing. Yeah.
So let me first start by how I did it, and then we can connect it with the roadmap.
Understood.
Yeah. So as I was initially researching about whether UX design is the ideal career shift for me, I was fortunate enough to come across this person who is my mentor right now, till date. She was working in UX design industry for more than 5 years, so she was the right person to guide me through. How she guided me was by, she first of all made it so clear I'm not going to spoon feed you anything, but I will recommend what to watch and what. As you mentioned, that there's so many things available out there already, and we can do research. But then there's another thing: what to watch and what to believe. Right? So that's what I was guided through. I was guided through the right kind of YouTube channels to watch and right kind of courses to take if I am willing to. I started with Coursera's Google UX Design Foundation course, which is like ideal. Everyone recommends it, and I think it's good to start with. So yeah, I begin with it. Honestly, that will only prepare you with the fundamentals of UX design. So that is why you have to simultaneously keep updated yourself through other ways as well. So simultaneously, I was also going through some articles, media articles, also going through some YouTube channels. So that's how I was educating myself. So, after the initial research and study, I when I was sure that this is the career shift I want to make, I reached out to my mentor saying that because I already have a design background, it's very easy for me. It is very easy for me to understand these fundamentals, understanding it. And I'm also understanding that you can keep on learning theoretical things. You can go on learning, but until and unless you actually do something like a practical project, you won't learn what you're supposed to learn.
Definitely.
She agreed with what I said, and she used to give me prompts and challenges to work on. And I used to work, and I used to get her feedback. So that was the major thing through which I have learned, honestly, with continuous practice and feedback. While I was also learning what other things like from other resources. So this is how I have learned. To mention about the roadmap, I realized this that there are two ways to do for it. So one is now UX design is something that you can teach yourself very easily through, of course, the resources available. But if you are somebody who works with like group of people, you need accountability, then you should definitely find a mentor. If you cannot find a mentor, then there are some YouTubers who have their own courses. Just be part of it then. But then don't be completely dependent on any course you take. Don't be completely dependent. They will give you enough of the information and you do it sincerely, but be ahead of everything. Is what I have realized. Even I realized at some point I was getting dependent on my mentor, which was not a good thing. Like she gave me something and I will do it. Then only I will do it, which was the wrong way to do it. No. Be ahead of everything. Ask questions. Be curious about everything. So yeah, this is basically how I would recommend to approach. First, do your own research. Second, if you think you work in a group, then be part of a course, but also be ahead of everything.
Understood. And that's a fair enough takeaway for the students. Like this answer is a gem, honestly, because you delivered it in such a short span of time, and that delivered in such a strong message that learn from everywhere. Right? Don't stick to one point. Don't stick to one specific resource. Right? So try to explore the industry. Try to learn more about the special field that you are interested in. Right? And just don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. Right?
Absolutely.
Just be self-motivated. Right? That's the first step to pursue anything. Right.
Exactly. So even what happens when I was taking Coursera's course, I realized now that I am working professionally, I realized that whatever I have learned was like the fundamentals only. But as we discussed, not every time you have opportunity to go through each phase, like the researching phase and every design thinking phase. I mean, so that course will make you think that you were supposed to go through this steps. No, they're just preparing you that these are the ideal approaches. But it absolutely depends upon like company to company. And so that's why be adaptable to companies to companies. Just be adaptable as a designer.
That's another fair enough takeaway. Right. So you mentioned about certain YouTubers who are posting general content, right? In the field of UX designing, UI designing, right? So, like any of the resources that you would like to share with the students, any books, any YouTube channels, right? Any communities that they can follow? Yeah.
Sure. Actually, Indian YouTubers, I have two recommendations. One is Ansh Mehra. That person has a playlist, complete playlist on YouTube for free to learn UX design. If you watch it, you will actually learn a lot. Also, don't be completely dependent, but it's a very good place to start with. So he's doing a good job. Another YouTuber is Saptarshi. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. Another designers are one is Eliana Kai. Another one is Misto. Next one I can remember is Ricardo. I don't remember his last name, but he's also somebody who has transitioned from architecture to UX design and working at Google. So yeah, these are few YouTubers. As for books, one book that is always recommended is Design of Everything. Everyday Things by Don Norman. This is recommended to start with. So yeah, this is one.
Understood. And that's a fair enough takeaway for the students, right? So I believe whomsoever is watching this video, if you are actually planning to transition or if you are actually interested in designing, right? So just try to note down these resources, right? Take a pencil and a notepad, right? And just try to just note down these things, because after watching this podcast, you can just search about it, right? And utilize this information in the right way, right? Perfect. So there is also a separate debate about this industry that there is no formal degree that anyone can pursue about UX designing or UI designing, right? There are only courses that they can go through, right? From your perspective, what kind of education or degree would best prepare someone for a career in UX specifically, right? Because you have been through it, you have transitioned, right? So you understand how important a degree is, right? And how important the certifications are, right? Because the companies are also hiring on those basis sometimes, and also on the basis of a portfolio. So what's your take on this thing?
Sure. I would say that if you are someone who's transitioning from one career to another, one industry to another, like to UX, then I don't think you need to go back to school and learn, because UX is a very learnable skill and you can do it without it but then you have to have a strong portfolio in that. But if you're someone who is now on this verge of choosing which stream, and you know for sure that UX design interests you, you can go with computer science easily. You can go with human computer interaction design or a design degree in general. Yeah, if you are very sure about it, go with this. Otherwise, because I have seen big tech companies asking for these degrees, so it is always safe to have one if you are just going to pursue it. If you're somebody who is transitioning from one industry to another and have time and resources, and you feel like it's a good thing for me to go to school again and gain design knowledge, do it for knowledge then. Then don't do it for a degree, I would say. It's a bonus then. If you are someone who is willing to learn design and are skeptical, like I don't know if I'm good at it, then you can go back with even time and resources. Otherwise, I think with a strong portfolio, with no design degree, it's fine.
So you mentioned about a strong portfolio, right? So how would you define a strong portfolio? As in, what would include in it, right? Would you like to understand?
Sure. So, if you are a fresher, I would suggest learn UX, UI both. Don't be very UX specific for now. That's what I did before, but eventually I also got into UI design. And having a strong portfolio, I would say have a strong, two solid case studies. Yes, that is what we want our recruiters' attention to go in. Work on real life projects if possible. So consider this: someone who is learning UX design has been learning for like few months now. I would say go to the platforms and get internship. If you cannot find a paid internship, volunteer. Yeah, that's how you can get to work on real life projects instead of just redesigning something or there's a lot of apps that freshers design, for example, pet apps or women pregnancy apps. This sort of, and when this sort of case studies are seen repeated, it's a turn off for recruiters. Right. So have a different approach to it, I would say, because of the competition as well. So I think having a strong portfolio means having a good case study and a real life case study solving a real problem will be good enough.
Understood. Okay, that's a fair enough overview, and I believe the students noted these points down, because this is very important if you're actually looking forward to the industry, right? And like nowadays there is also a lot of discussion about AI, right? Because AI is being incorporated into every single domain, right? Every single industry, right? And it is actually making the work a lot more easier. But there are now two perspectives of it, right? People might be fearing AI because they might be thinking about they lose their jobs, right? Or people might be happier that okay, they can now utilize AI to make their work easy, right? So how is it actually impacting your industry, right? And how real is the fear, right? And how can, like, there are three components to this question, right? So first thing is about the fear, right? The second one is about how can you utilize AI, right, to make your work easier, and how is it actually impacting your industry? That's the third point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would like to answer this in two sentences because I think that'll actually give you overview.
Yeah.
I feel like instead of fearing AI, fear that you will be replaced by skilled talent and designers who use AI.
Understood.
Exactly. Because AI is here and it's going to stay. Okay, so you better adopt to it, better learn to it. Otherwise, a fellow designer who is adapting to it, he'll take your job. Is what I feel.
That makes everything clear already.
Yeah. Correct. And if you see, like the second point you mentioned earlier, there is another perspective to look at it is that AI is like an assistant and it's making our work easier. It is. We better be prepared to make it a friend, learn to use it, learn prompting, and it'll assist you in a very good way. Like, also you can make a good business later on.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Because it is also opening a lot of opportunities for those who actually understand how to utilize it, right? Not only getting their work done, but also earning from it, right? And that too, making easy money out of it, because it actually makes your work so much easier in comparison. Whatever you were doing earlier, which took 2 days, now you can do it in a few hours, right?
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's a perfect overview about the thing. And the simplest explanation that anyone could understand, right? So currently the job market is tough, right? We have already been discussing this thing that the UX market, UI market is already so competitive, right? Especially when we talk about UX designing, right? So there is a lot of competition. So what is the reality of the job market? Because you have recently entered the market, right? So you are totally aware that how real the competition is, right? So how can freshers who are actually willing to enter into the industry make a move, right? How to navigate through the whole thing, and how to create a mark that, okay, even if they are freshers, then how can they actually create an impact with their profiles?
I'll be glad to answer this question because this is what I've been through recently. And when I was researching initially as a like to get into UX designing, all the videos that I came across said that it's a high-paying industry, which it is. That's true. But now that I've already entered, now I'm seeing the job portals. I've noticed something, and this is my theory. And I don't know if everyone agrees on it. That as I mentioned, UX is something which is easy to learn, and that's why there are many freshers who are getting into it. So the demand for UX designers is there, but also the number of people getting into it has increased now, which is making it very easy for recruiters to actually hard for recruiters to select the talent. It's a pool of talent, okay? There's so many good designers out there if you see. So what I'm seeing is, given that everyone says it's a high-paying job market, which it is, but because there are so many options, I also see some say the average salary of a fresher would be 8 to 10 LPA, but I've also seen it being 2 to 3 LPA. So where's the truth? So I've seen in YouTube channels they're mentioning this. Of course, I'm talking in context of Indian market.
Right.
But as I go on job portals, I see this difference. There are also opportunities for 1 year or 0 to 1 year experience who are offering 2 to 3 LP. So why is this happening then? Now, the truth lies on the both sides. There are these opportunities who are offering less, but also opportunities who are offering fair enough. Okay. So now, what will make you somebody who a recruiter is like, yeah, I'm willing to pay. For that, you have to stand out,
Right.
and the competition is so much right now that you have to think out of the box. Definitely, you have to get creative with your job application for sure. One of those days when you hit apply button for any role and you get the job. No, because at the same time there are so many candidates applying, right? But think of the creative ways you can stand out. Can you make a video recording yourself, introducing yourself or your project and send it around? Can you make a customized cover letter for that particular company so that it's not just ChatGPT copy pasted? Can you be genuine? Can you show that you really need this? So yeah, I would say to stand out, think of creative ways. Network a lot. If you want to get into a particular company, then try to reach out to the recruiters of that company, build a personal connection, build a genuine connection, and pitch yourself.
Understood.
That's one thing.
Understood. That's a fair enough overview, right? And I can totally understand this thing, because this is the case that exists in all the industries, honestly, right? Right. And the major reason why it happens is because there are categories of companies as well, right? Companies that have a very high market cap, companies that have a mediocre market cap, and companies that have a low market cap, right? So based on that, the companies have a budget, right? And on the basis of those budgets, the companies are posting in the opportunities, right? And definitely the division is there, and that to hiring freshers at high packages. That the companies do it. They're looking for the real talent, the people who actually have a lot of glorified profiles, right? In which there are good projects that they can showcase, right? And then much more to it. And at the same time, there are people who are mediocre and they don't actually have a lot to show. But these companies which are actually paying less wants to hire them as well because of the budget that they have, right? So that happens in every industry, right? It's a reality. We need to be ready for it. And if you actually want to gain those high numbers, then definitely build your profile so strong that the companies are willing to pay you anything that you ask for, right? As simple as that.
Become irreplaceable then.
Definitely. Because you need to do the best in your league. As simple as that. Anywhere you go, right?
True.
Yeah. So you have transitioned from architecture to UX designing, right? And definitely the transition was not easy, right? We are talking about that. Okay, you have switched from architecture to UX designing, but the thing is that the way we are just portraying it is not simple as है नहीं, right? मतलब there's a lot associated at the back end, right? हजारों failures होंगे, मतलब you must have faced multiple problems, right? Multiple ऐसे scenarios आए होंगे जहाँ पे you must have needed to tackle the thing and created a strategy for yourself to actually tackle the problem, then finding out the right way कैसे करना है काम, and there is a lot more to talk about it, right? So we would just like to know a little bit more about it. That what were the problems that you faced, right? The biggest struggles, the biggest challenges that you faced while going through the whole process.
For sure. So I would say that while I was learning, I was quite satisfied. I was quite happy in what direction I'm headed to. Like, but then when it came to finally apply for the jobs, that's when I felt the struggles majorly. So when I had my first interview, that was my first ever interview for UX design. Right? So I made some mistakes over there, and then finally there were some takeaways that this is something you should do and this is something you shouldn't do. Then other than that, there were other things. Yeah. So what happens is, as we talked, you apply for multiple jobs,
right?
And then you have multiple rejections as well. And it's not necessary that it's always you. It can be there could be a possibility that they have stopped hiring or they found the right candidate early on. There could be multiple reasons, but at the end we take things personally and we are like, is it us? Because of course. So the internal struggle is also there, but then having a right kind of mindset is important. You have to keep going. You cannot. Then there was this opportunity that I was so excited about, and I was like, I'm going to get it because I went in the last round and it did not work out. And to come up of that slump was another thing. It took me then a week. And then I realized, oh my god, I wasted so much of time now. So there are these things, internal things that show up, which only means that you have to be resilient in the transition process. You have to be resilient. Another thing that I understood, like for someone who is transitioning, consider a few points. Always take care of your health. That should be the first and topmost thing. Please take care of your health and do not quit your job. Okay. Now, why I'm saying is, even if somebody who is looking for transition would always think that I'm not happy with my current job situation, so I'm desperate to change. Now, because I'm desperate to change, let me quit because I'm anyways transitioning. But you don't know about the uncertainties that may arise. This job that I was talking about, I thought I got it because I went in the last round, but it did not happen. You never know what happens, right? So be prepared. And having your current job will satisfy with your material things, like your money thing will be sorted. You'll have some load off your shoulder. Also, why I mentioned take care of your health is because as you will be working a full-time job, also learning side by side for the industry that you want to transition into, you will require good capacity and energy. And only when you have the capacity to do more, will you be able to do more. So nobody considers this, but have a healthy routine first, and then think about transition. Is something that I would highly recommend for somebody else transition.
Actually, it also needs a lot of mental preparation, right? You already mentioned it. So, like the struggle is real, honestly. The pressure that you're facing, throughout the process, that is quite immense, right? Facing rejections and coping up through the rejections, that is the most difficult thing to do. Right, one of the most difficult things to do. Yeah. So, you just need to be prepared mentally कि ठीक है मेरे को करना है, and you need to be self-motivated. वहाँ पे self-motivation plays a very strong role, है ना? उसके बिना तो मतलब people will just lose hope and कि मेरे से नहीं हो रहा, मैं क्या करूँ? Let's leave it, right? And that's really
Yeah, true. And you will fall, and you have to be self-motivated to get out there.
Actually, falling is also very important to actually flourish later on. Because that's where you reach the lowest, and after reaching the lowest, then you rise again, right? And when you rise stronger.
So
yeah. And Like that's a fair enough overview and also an amazing story and amazing journey to hear about. And I'm really happy that I'm listening to your like the whole journey, and I'm really honored to take this podcast because this is a this is an amazing story to actually deliver to the students because they'll be learning a lot through you. Honestly,
Yeah. I am so glad to be able to say this because when you approached to me, it's like, yeah, I want this to come out because even UX as an industry is very glorified.
right?
It's very fancy from outside.
Hmm.
Okay. But no industry is perfect.
Yeah.
I hope everybody understands.
Yeah. Like every single person who is working currently at a certain role will agree कि मेरी industry ऐसी नहीं है जैसे मेरे को लगी थी. Because that's why we're talking about the industry myths, right? And that's why the series is industry myths. Because before entering the industry, you have a specific picture of that industry in your mind, right? But after entering it, the reality is very different.
Absolutely.
Because the whole idea changes, the whole perspective changes, right? And then you know the reality. Oh, ठीक है, जैसा मैंने imagine करा था वैसा नहीं है, right? But कोई बात नहीं, you need to adjust to it, right? And that's how it goes.
Yeah, and that should be the mindset. So the thing to differentiate is if you are confused between two industries, for example, या मुझे transition करना है या फिर मुझे ये वाली industry जानी है ये भी पसंद है. So how do you figure it out? So first, understand nothing is going to be perfect. Okay? एक बार समझ लिया तो दूसरी चीज then see the pros and cons of each. Understand what are you liking, what are you not liking, and then start seeing the cons. देखो कि what cons you are actually okay with. एक compare कर सकते हो and then go with that. So that is how I understood it for myself. Okay, then something's okay. Then I'm okay with it. Like better than what I was facing before. I am okay to go with this.
Perfect. So if you were actually asked to restart the whole journey again, right? You recently joined, but okay, just imagine that we're restarting again, right? And going through the whole struggle again, right? So what would you do differently this time, right? So that you could actually make a mark.
Okay. So first thing, I started my LinkedIn actually quite late. So I was looking for jobs finally. That's when I started optimizing my LinkedIn profile. First, I had LinkedIn profile about architecture, but I wasn't posting it anything there. Just 2-3 posts per day. But because LinkedIn is also a good platform where you can connect with people in the industry, where you can learn also. There are good insights that designers post every day. But I got quite late over there. Is what I regret. So as soon as this is for somebody who is starting out, as soon as you are starting up, actually any industry per se, any industry, even if you are a student, even if you are in learning phase, you don't have to wait to be an expert to share anything on social media. And start with LinkedIn. You can choose your social media later on and expand yourself. There are multiple platforms as well, but start with LinkedIn. And even if you are learning anything, जो भी पढ़ रहे हो, जो भी सीख रहे हो, post कर दो.
Right.
Post it over there. People see it. People know that you are accountable to yourself, that you are consistent and you are learning. Over the period of time when you become an expert, you already have good amount of connections.
Right.
Which you have built on LinkedIn profile. Your profile will be optimized. You don't have to go and work it over and over again. And it'll be easy to, even easy to get jobs then in the future whenever you do. So that is the first thing I would do. Second thing is that I mentioned it earlier as well. I started out as a UX designer. But then I got into the industry and I got to know that the market has changed now. पहले क्या होता था first there were specific roles for UX designers, UI designers अब भी है. But I've seen that it's mostly for huge companies, big companies who hire for the specific roles. But if you're getting started, I have seen multiple companies hiring for UX and UI designers both. अगर तुम fresher हो, have skills of UX UI both. Don't miss out on visual designs. Because what I've seen is companies that I was interviewing with and also company that I'm working with, both of them told me early on that we are looking for someone with hard skills. And otherwise, I was looking in LinkedIn designers talking about how soft skills are more important than hard skills. I was like, there's a gap here now. What is this thing? But then I realized that actually both are equally important. And for a fresher, you have to have good hard skills. Because what the recruiters told me was that we already have problem thinkers in our team. We don't need problem solvers and thinkers. We are sorted in that area. We need someone to quickly make our designs. you want to get started, own hard skills very well, own visual skills along with UX skills. And then obviously over the period of time you can niche down. That I like this more, I want to do this specific one, and then it becomes easier also to get into that specific.
Right. Understood. Okay, so when we talk about architecture or when we talk about UX designing, right? So both industries are very different, right? But one thing is common is creativity and design thinking, right? Like these pointers are common, right? And in most of the creative industries, these pointers are always common, right? When you actually need to create something with your imagination and then just put it in front of the people who will be reviewing it, right?
Yeah.
So how do these industries differentiate, and what's the overview about it?
Sure. Okay. So what I realized after getting into UX designing is that architecture industry needs product industry a lot actually. I don't know if they realize this or not. I don't know if somebody who wants to start a product based or release a product, turn it into business, know this gap. But as someone who has transitioned from that industry to this, I know they need a product, a good products, I must say. For example, the tools that we use as UX designers, you are very well aware of Figma, which is quite well known, quite used by every designer now. It's a go-to designing tool for us, and other tools like Miro and other designing tools in general have good interface and easy to use. Actually, there are no-code website builders as well that are very easy to use. But if you look at architecture designing tools, they are complex. Must be complex for a reason, but there is always scope for making it better. And I haven't seen that being updated over more than decades now. It's still there. So there is this gap that I've seen, and if somebody is wanting to get into it, there's a good opportunity actually. I've only seen one Indian startup designing a product for architecture industry. It's called Informia. So another is that Figma has this feature that we can collaborate, right? You can invite other designers from your team who can view it, and then you can also have discussions over it simultaneously online. Everything is happening online. Why? When I was working as an architect, so what used to happen is when I design as a junior architect design. Okay? Now I need to get feedback from my senior, but my senior is busy. I have to personally go to them again and again to get the feedback and stuff. The collaboration thing, which happens through Figma very smoothly, doesn't happen over there.
Understood.
So the first foremost gap that I've seen is in designing tools and how they can become better. And this one Indian product that I'm talking about, Informia, actually solving the problem, but I think it's big. So yeah, this is one. Another thing I would say is I have seen the power of social media. Because we all know what major role it plays in anybody's life, anybody's career. And in UX design industry, I've seen students, experts, expert designers, everyone using it, leveraging it to their benefit. They are teaching about design. They're talking about design, everything. So you have this huge pool of knowledge available to you. For every question, you get the answer if you look for it.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, but that's not the case for architecture. I've seen this that architects, only big names, only architects who are very well known for their work, come and talk about their work. And the basic knowledge, the basic foundation which for somebody who is really at the beginning of the career and is very confused that ये कैसे होता है, ये कैसे किया जाता है, because यहाँ पे क्या है ना, there is a designing part and execution part which differs a lot. You have to stay in office to become a design expert, and you have to stay on site to become a site expert, but you are supposed to have knowledge of both. कैसे balance करोगे within? नहीं कर सकते. You have to give a significant amount of years to yourself to be able to balance this both. So nobody is sharing that knowledge. Site पे भी जा रहे हो. There's so much to learn, but you cannot just type in and get all the answers you want. So knowledge gap is definitely there. These two are the significant gaps that I see.
Understood. This podcast has actually been a goldmine for the students who are actually looking forward to pursue this career, right? Pursue UX as a career, right? And you are an excellent orator. Honestly, you have been delivering the answers in such a perfect manner that like every single pointer has been made clear. Honestly, right? So I believe the students who have been watching this podcast have got a fair enough overview, right, about the industry, the problems, right, how to actually start with it, right, and also the challenges that you might face while going through the whole process, and also much more to it. So I believe this has been a problem solver for those people who have been watching this podcast as well. Lastly, ma'am, any specific thing that you would like to mention that we haven't covered in this podcast that might be beneficial for the students, and any kind of a guide that you want to give to them?
Sure. Well, I don't mean to discourage anybody with this podcast because I mentioned good and bad sides both. I don't know if I mentioned bad sides more, but that was honest, very honest review of mine for whatever I've seen. But I absolutely love UX designing, and it's a great place to be. It's satisfying, I'm somebody who is multi passionate. Like I have interest in psychology, I have interest in business thinking. I like design, and I like having conversations like this. And UX designing is combination of everything. So I would like to say somebody who is like me, who is interested in multiple things and is not aware of what industry is perfect for them. I think you like UX designing because for me, because I like psychology, I am required to use that knowledge. So I understand my users. If I like talking, it is required for me to talk to users to understand their needs and requirements.
Right.
Design thinking is so important in product building because we are not just designing for the sake of business, but also for the sake of business, and we never forget it. You have to balance this whole. So I think this is. I've seen actually many people who getting confused that I have multiple passions. What do I do? This was answer for me. I hope this is like the right answer for others as well, or somebody who's looking to enter into industry. So this is one. Another one, when you decide to get into a UX industry, or actually to begin with any industry, leverage your skills on social media, document your journey on social media. Do not wait to become an expert. Be open. You will be liked and you will be appreciated. You will be recognized for your work eventually. Don't get discouraged with few beginning postings. Like don't get very attached to, oh, I'm not getting views or I'm not getting likes. Am I even being seen? You never know what happens, and just do it for the sake of accountability. So that when after a few years you can look back on your own social media account and see how far I've come. So learn to document your journey and do it for yourself. It'll show its result eventually, and you don't have to think about it.
And that's like this. This has been a great podcast, honestly, because of your delivery, right? Whatsoever you have delivered, it has been a great podcast, honestly, right? And it has helped a number of students who will be watching this podcast in the long ago, right? And I'm really thankful, ma'am, that you actually contributed. You have invested so much of your time to this podcast, right? And this is a little goldmine for the students who are actually, looking forward to understand the reality of the industry and get an honest overview about it, right? Because there are a lot of resources that are actually pointing out towards the glorified side of the whole industry, and that is not specific to UX, but also specific to every single industry that is existing, right? So the students actually need to know that what is happening at ground zero, right?
Yes.
And at ground zero is, I believe, the most critical thing that every student should focus on, right? And that's how you gradually start learning and start growing, right? From ground zero, because blindly following any roadmap won't work out, right? So you just need to do your own research as well.
Absolutely.
Right. So the students who have watched this podcast, I request you to just note down certain points, right? So I believe you have noted down those pointers, and after watching this podcast, please just do your research, search about it, right? Don't let this 1 hour be wasted, right? Honestly, because if you just watch the podcast and don't do any research about it, right, about the topics that ma'am has delivered, so it won't be any good for you, right? They will bhul jaoge, so this is wasting 1 hour of your time, right? Just utilize it in a proper way, right? And that's all from our side. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being here. Thank you for investing so much of your time. And we'll be definitely looking forward to having more such recordings in future. Right? Thank you. Thank you for watching, people. Bye-bye. Just take care of yourself.